Summary of the Castle of Otranto by Horace Walpole. The King of Otranto, Manfred, is excitedly awaiting the union of his son Conrad and Princess Isabella, the Vicenza Marquis's daughter. People speculate that the marriage is somehow connected to an old prophecy that states that the castle and lordship of Otranto should pass from the present family, whenever the real owner should be grown too large to inhabit it. Rumors abound about Manfred's impatience for the wedding. Conrad is inexplicably killed by a massive helmet descending from the sky on the wedding day, though. Manfred makes the decision to marry his son's fiancée Isabella after realizing that his only heir is deceased and that he will be unable to have any more boys with his own wife, Hippolyta. Manfred meets Isabella alone and announces his intention to have multiple boys with her while divorcing or killing Hippolyta. He snatches her despite her horrified cries and begins to rape her, but Isabella manages to flee as Manfred is diverted by the gigantic helmet's swaying feathers, his grandfather's moving image, and his servant's accounts of the sight of a big limb in armor. Isabella escapes the castle with the assistance of a peasant named Theodore and finds safety at the Church of St. Nicholas, where Father Jerome is watching out for her. When a servant tells Matilda, Manfred's daughter, that Isabella has sought refuge, they are discussing Isabella'S departure with her servant Bianca. Father Jerome is conversing with Hippolyta and Manfred at the same time, hinting at but not outright divulging Manfred's sins. But after Hippolyta excuses herself from the discussion, Father Jerome reminds Manfred more bluntly of his faults and exhorts him to turn to God and the Church. However, Manfred consistently declines and makes attempts to persuade Jerome to grant him a divorce. Jerome follows orders because of concern about the repercussions of refusing. To Jerome's dismay, however, Manfred accidentally sentences Theodore to death as a result of his divorce, and Jerome immediately recognizes Theodore as his long-lost son. Manfred only guarantees Jerome his son's life in exchange for Isabella, leaving Jerome with a difficult moral choice. Before he can make a choice, however, they are interrupted by a horde of knights wielding a massive sword and seeking Isabella and the lordship of Otranto in the name of Frederick, Isabella's father and the nearest known relative of Alonso, the previous lord of Otranto before Manfred's grandfather took control. Despite Manfred's feeble attempts to convert them, the knights learn that Isabella has gone missing and race against his soldiers to find her. Matilda releases Theodore from her father's confinement after noticing that he resembles Otranto's former ruler and hero Alfonso. They then fall in love. Theodore resolves to guard Isabella in order to avoid Manfred's anger and in pursuit of excitement. He locates her in a cave and saves her from a knight there. The knight, however, who Theodore wounded, turns out to be Frederick, Isabella's father. When Theodore, Frederick, and Isabella get back to the castle, Frederick gets better and develops feelings for Matilda. After being imprisoned by Muslims during the Crusades, Frederick claims to have had a vision warning him that his daughter was in danger, which is how he ended up in Otranto. The vision took him to Joppa, where he encountered a hermit who showed him the location of a massive sword hidden in the ground. The gigantic saber's matching helmet is located where a prophecy declaring that Isabella can only be saved by Alfonso's blood is inscribed on the sword. When Manfred comes after Frederick has finished telling his tale, he immediately notes how strikingly like Theodore and Alfonso are. After Theodore's origins are questioned, Theodore explains how he, too, ended up in Otranto. As a child, he was abducted and sold into slavery by pirates, and all that was left of him was a letter from his mother stating that Jerome, the Count of Falconera, is his father. He traveled to Otranto, where he worked as a farmhand, for 2 years after being set free by Christians. He then looked in vain for his father. The following day, Manfred uses Frederick's interest in Matilda to try to win Isabella's hand in marriage. He suggests a double union in which Manfred and Frederick wed their respective daughters. Matilda and Otranto are both very alluring to Frederick, and the only thing standing in his way is getting Hippolyta to agree to a divorce, which Manfred can do with ease. Even though he is still intensely tempted, Frederick decides against the double marriage after the hermit's ghost haunts him for abandoning his duty and choosing lust above heavenly will. When one of his spies tells Manfred that Theodore is meeting a woman in Alfonso's grave, He loses even more of his temper after learning of Frederick's change of heart. Manfred sneaks into the tomb believing Isabella is having an affair with Theodore and stabs her, only to find that he has instead killed his daughter Matilda. Matilda is dedicated to her mother and father till the very last, despite the fact that she would soon pass away. Behind Manfred, portions of the castle walls collapse, and a magnificent portrait of Alfonso proclaims that Theodore is his rightful heir. Jerome explains that Theodore is Alfonso's grandson, and Manfred confesses that his grandfather had taken the crown from Alfonso after being overcome with regret and sadness. Manfred abdicates, and Hippolyta follows suit by retiring to a nearby monastery to take up the monastic life. Theodore is presented with Isabella's hand in marriage by Frederick, who renounces his claim to Otranto.
About the author. The youngest son of Robert Walpole, the country's first prime minister, Horace Walpole was the fourth Earl of Orford. Walpole attended Eton College as a young student, where he made friends with people like Thomas Ashton, Thomas Gray, and Richard West. The Quadruple Alliance was the name given to the four lads' friendship. Walpole continued his education at Cambridge after leaving Eton. Walpole's mother Catherine, with whom he had a close relationship, passed away in 1737, and the following year he left Cambridge without receiving a degree. Then, Walpole set out on the grand tour with his companion Thomas Gray, as young, well-off European men frequently did, and traveled through France and Italy. Walpole expected to be seated in Parliament when he returned to England in 1741, but instead discovered that his father's standing and influence had significantly eroded. As a result, he intermittently attended Parliament and occasionally worked as a pamphleteer. Despite never being married, he was a sociable individual who was well known for being kind, witty, and whimsical. He was also hooked on the idea of singularity or originality in both his writing and his collection of antiquities. In addition to his contribution to building, he also became well known for his extraordinary library and art collection. He constructed a castle in Twickenham that was modeled after a medieval fortress between the years of 1749 and 1753 as an amateur architect who enjoyed Gothic design. His house, Strawberry Hill, is credited with rekindling enthusiasm in Gothic construction. Gothic had previously been connected to savagery and crudeness. Thomas Gray's Odes by Mr. Gray was the first work printed by the Strawberry Hill machine, a printing machine that Walpole erected inside his house in 1757. Although the castle of Otranto's locale and inspiration, Strawberry Hill, respectively, served as the motivation for the book, Walpole did not print the book at his own press but instead submitted it anonymously to a different London publisher. Because of its enormous success, later editions included Walpole's name. Although Walpole's most well-known work is The Castle of Otranto, he was a prolific author who produced a wide range of works, including poems, romances, chronicles, and catalogues. A year after Walpole's passing in 1797, many of the letters he wrote to friends in France and England during his life were published. These letters are known for their wit and elegance. Age 79, Horace Walpole passed away in London.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.